This is the story of a college student named Walter who showed up at an old house to rent a room. He rang the doorbell, but no one answered. So he let himself in and made his way to the manager's office. But before he could knock, an old man from the room across the hall stepped out, staring at him silently. The moment the manager appeared, the old man disappeared into his room like he'd never been there. Walter quickly got the sense that the manager was a real piece of work, rude, cold, and only interested in one thing: money. Walter wasn't looking for luxury, just a quiet place with cheap rent. And this house, it was the cheapest option around. So here he was, but quiet? Not even close. The room next door belonged to a single mother with a baby who cried all the time. And Walter's room? A total disaster. The bed wobbled like it was on a boat, and the furniture looked like it had survived a bar fight. Still, he had to deal with it. The deal required 2 months' rent up front and a $100 security deposit for the furniture, though it was already half broken. That deposit? He wasn't getting it back. Anyone else might have walked out, but Walter was just a broke student trying to make it work, so he took the room. As he started unpacking, the drawer collapsed the moment he placed his clothes inside. Some kind of high-tech junk that didn't actually work. That night, as he tried to sleep on the creaky swinging bed, the old man from across the hall suddenly started chanting, loudly, some kind of prayer while banging on furniture. So much for peace and quiet, but hey, this was all Walter could afford. The next day, Walter was working on a project. He created an angle by connecting 3 walls, just like the strange corner in his room. Curious, Walter approached the wall and knocked, and then laughter. A creepy, echoing laugh came from inside the wall. Walter froze. He was shocked, sure, but strangely thrilled. Maybe, just maybe, this was what he'd been searching for. Suddenly, a scream shattered the moment. It was his neighbor. He rushed to her room and found a rat, huge, clinging to the woman. She was kicking it, but it wouldn't let go. And this thing? It wasn't acting like a normal rat. It was bold, aggressive, shameless. Walter must have scared it off because it scurried into a hole in the wall. He ran to tell the manager, but before he could reach him, that same old man stepped out again, blocking his path. Inside the room, the woman's child was crying, scared the rat might bite him. But the manager? He didn't care one bit. He didn't even open his door. When Walter knocked, the guy just yelled through the wall, "This house is 300 years old. You think there aren't gonna be rats? What else you expect, fairies?" Then he tossed a hammer at Walter and added, "I'm not fixing anything. Handle it yourself." As Walter made his way back upstairs, the old man bumped into him. Literally, he had a strange scar across his forehead. He looked Walter dead in the eyes and asked, "You saw the rat?" Walter nodded. "The big one?" Again Walter nodded. Then the man leaned in a little and asked quietly, "Did it have a human face?" Walter stared at him, confused, and said nothing, just walked off and muttered. So Walter went straight over, pulled out his so-called high-tech drawer, and used it to block the rat hole. Finally, something that drawer was actually good for. The woman, clearly impressed, introduced herself as Frances, and her little boy was Danny. She offered Walter some tea as a thank you, but he had work to do. Still, her problem was solved, for now. But that night, things got weird again. Walter started hearing strange noises coming from inside the wall. He tried to ignore them and went to sleep, but just as he dozed off, a soft purple light began glowing from that same strange angle in his wall. Then it happened. That same rat crept back into his room, except this time it sat right in front of Walter's face, and it spoke. And here's the part that'll make your skin crawl. The rat had a human face on its torso, a real face, and it looked Walter dead in the eye and said, "She is coming for you." See, this is what horror used to be about, the bizarre, the experimental. Today everyone's so focused on perfect lighting, clean aesthetics, and polished plots. But real horror lives in the unexplainable. Think about it. If that had been just a regular rat or even a regular human, would it have had the same impact? This is the kind of thing that burns itself into your memory. You can't forget it. Walter jumped up yelling, but by then the rat had already disappeared back into its hole. Hearing the commotion, Frances came over to check on him. This time she asked if he wanted tea. Walter agreed. As they sipped, Walter started talking about parallel dimensions. He claimed that just like our world, there are other dimensions, and at specific angles they overlap. According to him, if you hit that exact angle, you could actually move between them. He said he'd been studying this and recently found that very angle, right there, in the wall of his room. That's where the rat came from. Another dimension. Frances couldn't follow any of it. She was too preoccupied packing her things. She was being evicted the next morning after missing rent for 2 straight months. When Walter found out, he handed her $50, enough to buy her a few more days, enough time to hopefully land a job. She thanked him, and he went back to his room to continue studying the mysterious angle. But then the old man upstairs started praying again. Loud, intense, disturbing. This time, Walter stormed into his room, begging him to stop, but he wouldn't. That's when Walter realized something. The old man kept banging his forehead against the furniture while praying. That's why it was always red. When the old man finally stopped, he looked at Walter and asked, "You saw the rat, right? The one with the human face?" Walter hesitated, then said it was just a dream. "After you mentioned it, it stuck in my head. I saw it in my sleep." But the old man shook his head. "Number, that rat is real. It's connected to a witch, and it said she's hunting you." He explained that he too had once come to this house, young and full of life, just like Walter. He had lived in the same room, had the same strange dreams, and eventually, he saw the witch. She forced him to do unspeakable things. Now, every day, he beat his head in prayer to beg for forgiveness and to keep her away. He tried to warn Walter and even gave him a cross to wear, but Walter didn't take it. The next day, when Walter got back from college, she was headed out for a job interview. She asked Walter to watch Danny, her little boy. As soon as she left, Walter looked at Danny and asked the only question that seemed to matter.
"You want a beer?"
But the moment Danny tried to get off Walter's lap, he started crying. Classic baby behavior. So Walter held him close. That's when he noticed something. Danny wore a large cross around his neck. After putting Danny to sleep, Walter sat down to get some work done. But soon, he dozed off too. And then it happened again. The purple light. The witch appeared once more, but this time, she looked exactly like Frances, and she was naked. Walter fell into her trap without resistance. They got intimate. Meanwhile, she dragged her nails across Walter's waist, carving a star into his skin. She was marking him. The moment she finished, her illusion shattered, revealing her true, terrifying form. She let out a loud, twisted laugh. Walter, frozen with fear, began crying. He woke up screaming, drenched in sweat, and found himself back in his room. Still shaken, he kept telling himself it was just a dream. But then Danny's cry broke the silence. Panicked, Walter ran to check on him, but his bedroom door was locked. At that same moment, Frances returned home. He quickly unlocked the door and rushed to Danny, taking him up. Oddly enough for Walter, he was confused. He clearly remembered falling asleep next to Danny, so how did he end up in his own bed? The only explanation he could think of was sleepwalking. So, he asked Frances for some flour and sprinkled it all around his bed. If he walked in his sleep again, the footprints would prove it. Frances kept insisting Walter should see a doctor. She was frustrated, not just because she couldn't afford one, but also because Walter had wasted her flour on his sleepwalking experiment. After she left, Walter lifted his shirt and saw blood trickling from his waist. The star-shaped mark was real. It hadn't been a dream, but even then he couldn't accept it. His mind was spinning. He couldn't tell what was real anymore, what was a nightmare and what was actually happening. Trying to calm down, he turned on his side and drifted off again. That's when the light came back. Walter snapped awake to the sound of a rat scurrying across the floor. He looked down and saw footprints, tiny rat feet and a long tail trail, etched clearly in the flour. They led straight under the bed. He leaned over to take a closer look, and suddenly a hand reached out and yanked him underneath. In an instant, he was face to face with the witch again. This time, she wasn't just watching. She was holding out a strange ancient book. She demanded he sign it, with his blood. He let out a scream, and suddenly, he found himself in his college library. For a moment, it felt like another dream, but then he saw the blood dripping from his wrist. It was real, and right there in front of him was that same massive book, stuffed with forbidden knowledge from around the world. This time, he saw something even darker, a ritual for sacrificing small children. There were detailed drawings of the witch and her rat, the ceremonial dagger used for the sacrifice, and a bowl meant to collect the child's blood. Walter was horrified. He slammed the book shut, only to realize the cover was made from human skin, a human face. You get what that means, right? That book wasn't just any book. It was the Necronomicon, the real Book of the Dead, not the Hollywood version from Evil Dead, but the original one mentioned in H.P. Lovecraft's stories. That's where Evil Dead borrowed the idea from. While Walter stood there, shaken, the librarian walked in, and when she saw Walter standing there, with no pants on, she screamed and bolted out of the room. Without wasting a second, Walter rushed home. He ran to Frances and begged her to get Danny out of the house. "There's a witch after me," he said. "She's trying to kill Danny. If I fall asleep again, she'll get to him." But of course, Frances thought he'd lost his mind. She yelled at him, threatened to call the cops, pushed him out the door and told him to go see a doctor. Not long after, the old man came to find Walter. Walter told him everything. The witch, the book, the mark. "I want to trap her," he said. "I want to beat her." But the old man shook his head. "You can't defeat her," he warned. You need to run. Now. Walter refused. If I leave, she'll kill Danny. She will, the old man agreed. But to do that, she needs you. You're the host. Only if you kill Danny can the ritual be completed. Then the old man dropped a terrifying truth. He had once been the witch's slave too. For years, he'd done her bidding, killing children. Not just one, but many. Infants, toddlers, kids as young as a few months to 3 or 4 years old. Eventually he broke. He went to the police, confessed everything, but no one believed him. Just like no one would believe Walter now. That's why he was begging him to run. Before he left, the old man slipped a cross around Walter's neck, and the moment he was gone, Walter grabbed a tool and began smashing down a wall. The building manager came running in to stop him, but Walter scared him off. The manager left, shouting that he was calling the police. Walter didn't stop. He broke through the wall, and what he found chilled him to the bone. A hidden room filled with the skeletons of children. This house, it was over 300 years old, and for 300 years, kids had been slaughtered here, because this was once her house, the witch's, and behind that wall, Walter found the sacrificial chamber. The dagger was still there, the blood bowl, and Danny was there too. Then suddenly, the witch appeared. She handed Walter a dagger and commanded him to kill Danny. His hand began moving on its own, slowly drifting toward Danny's neck. He tried desperately to resist, but the dagger still grazed Danny, just enough for a few drops of blood to fall into the ritual bowl. But right before things got worse, Walter twisted his hand and turned the blade toward the witch. She yanked the dagger back from him, but in the chaos, Walter managed to gouge out both of her eyes. Now blind, the witch swung the knife wildly in every direction. Walter didn't waste a second. He grabbed the cross around his neck and strangled her with it until she dropped dead. He rushed Danny to his room, laid him on the bed, and finally caught a breath. That's when Danny started crying. The rat. It was biting into his neck. Meanwhile, in another room, the old man, praying desperately, smashed his own head into a table and he injured himself. Hearing Danny's screams, Francis rushed to Walter's room, but the door was locked. The manager arrived moments later with the police, and when they finally broke the door open, everyone froze in horror. Walter was sitting on the floor, drenched in blood, holding Danny's lifeless body in his lap. Everyone thought the same thing. Walter killed Danny. After all, hadn't he told Francis earlier that a witch was going to murder Danny? Walter had once dreamed of starting a life with Francis, but now, no matter what he said, she'd never see him the same way. Even though he was trying to save her child, he became the villain, the greatest tragedy in her life. He was taken straight to the asylum. There, he kept telling the same story. A witch tried to kill Danny. I killed the witch. But then her rat came and killed the boy. That rat had a human face. Everyone thought he'd gone insane. Just a man who murdered a child and created a fantasy world in his mind to escape guilt. And maybe guys, you're thinking the same. Maybe there was no witch. Maybe Walter had fallen in love with Francis and in some twisted way killed Danny to have her to himself. That theory makes sense, right? But then something happened that shook everyone to their core. Police uncovered skeletons of children buried inside the house. Dozens of them. Some, according to forensic reports, were at least 30 years old. Others, over 300 years. This meant the witch story wasn't just fantasy. It might be real. Even the mark on Danny's neck wasn't a blade wound. It was a bite by some kind of creature. But when scientists tested the DNA, they couldn't match it to any known animal. Whatever bit Danny had never been cataloged, and the dagger Walter described, it was found too. Everything, every piece of evidence, was lining up with Walter's version of events. But still, the lead officer refused to believe any of it. The old man's prayers had failed, and with no hope left, he ended his own life. And then, the rat came for Walter. One night, the hospital staff heard him screaming in agony. When they rushed into his ward, they found him in horrific condition, bleeding all over. There was no way he could have done that to himself in a locked room. But then, one of the nurses lifted his shirt, and the rat scurried out from under his body. Everyone saw it. At that moment, they finally believed him. But what did it matter now? Walter was already dead, and with that, the episode came to an end. For me, the highlight of this particular episode was the rat. From the beginning, it felt different, but in the end, it completely stole the show, delivering two shocking twists that stirred up so many unexpected emotions. First, it killed Danny, wiping out all of Walter's efforts and sacrifices in a single moment. And second, it turned out to be the real killer. No one ever expected the rat to hold that kind of power. It shattered any hope of a happy ending between Walter and Francis. And then, as if that wasn't enough, it took Walter's life too. What's wild is that it confirmed Walter's entire story. The rat didn't just disappear like it did after killing Danny. This time, it ran off right in front of everyone. It made sure the truth couldn't be denied anymore. So yeah, turns out it was all part of that rat's game. The creature that brought out so many emotions, crushed every hope, and tied the whole story together in a way no one saw coming. And if you think that was intense, just wait. Stories like this are only the beginning. We've got more that'll stay with you long after the screen fades to black. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button and drop a comment below. Let us know if you want more episodes like this released regularly, or if there's another series you'd love to see us dive into next. We're aiming for 1,000 comments, so let's hit that goal together. And of course,